Hello, my name is Dina Bosa, and I will be presenting a PESTEL analysis on Nigeria. Nigeria is located in the Midwest part of the African continent. It is the most populous country in Africa and the seventh most populous country in the world. Nigeria is known as the Giant of Africa due to its large population and economy. It has the 41st largest economy in the world and the second largest economy in Africa. It has over 250 ethnic groups and the primary language spoken is English. Nigeria gained its independence from Great Britain in 1960 and its current president is Muhammadu Buhari. Corruption is one of the biggest challenges in Nigeria. It is known for its high level of corruption in many areas. Due to this level of corruption in the country, it is currently ranked number 136 in the Corruption Index, while the U.S. is ranked number 18 out of 176 countries. The high level of corruption does make it difficult to do business in Nigeria. Here we can see a graph that shows the increase in Nigeria's exports and imports throughout the years. There have been a significant increase in their exports since 1995, and the country has increased its exports by 11.7% since 2005. The main products that are exported are crude oil, petroleum, and special ships, and the main products that are imported are refined petroleum, cars, and wheat. Also, this graph shows the FDI comparison between Nigeria and the United States. Nigeria's growth is not as significant as the United States, however, you can see the progress. There is also a significant difference between Nigeria and the United States GNI at PPP and GNI per capita at PPP. Nigeria's HDI is on the low end, and this is due to the high corruption the country faces. However, there has been a very noticeable increase since 2005.
I will now discuss the social-cultural section for Nigeria. We begin in education, where unfortunately Nigerian schools are not ranked on the Program for International Student Assessment Scale, the PISA scale, which is a global assessment system used in ranking schools. This is in part with Nigeria being a developing country, which makes it rather difficult to compare with that of a developed country, such as the United States. The government of Nigeria is responsible for providing free primary education to promote the social and economic development of the community as a whole, such as in the United States. As you see here on the graph of the rise in capital expenditure on education, the large rise is reflective of the growing youth population, which in part has placed a strain on government resources for education, leading to the education system to being underfunded. Consequently, this may be the reason why there are no Nigerian schools to be on the PISA scale. However, there is presently a 61.3% literacy rate among the population. We now take a look into religions practiced in Nigeria, with around 50% being that of Islamic faith, mostly located in the northern part of Nigeria. There is 40% that are of Christian faith, mostly located in the southern region, and the remaining 10% are that of indigenous beliefs. Note that in Nigeria there is no official or state religion. We now take a look into the languages spoken in Nigeria. Nigeria is a multilingual society with a total of 521 languages. The main languages spoken are English, which by the way is the official language, at around 42% of the population. Hausa and Yoruba, both with around 21% of the population, and the remaining is Igbo with around 16%. These main languages represented are the majority spoken by the population in large cities, with the remaining small languages spoken in rural areas. We will now take a look into Nigeria's Hofstede's dimension analysis comparative to that of the United States. We begin from the left looking into the power distance, which indicates a society's view of accepting a hierarchy. As you can see, Nigeria has a higher score than that of the United States. A high score indicates an acceptance to authority, as opposed to a low score, which signifies questioning such authority. Next is individualism, which indicates how people in society group themselves, either within individualism or collectivism. As you can see here, the United States has a higher score as opposed to Nigeria, indicating how individualism is rather accepted in the US as opposed to a collective mindset in Nigeria. Next is masculinity, to which indicates how a society holds assertive masculine traits as opposed to feminine values. As you can see in the graph, both nations are score similar and leaning towards more of a masculine society. Next is uncertainty avoidance, which indicates the society's tolerance for ambiguity, to which a higher score signifies less accepting of different thoughts. A lower score signifies less rules and acceptance of new and different ideas. As you can see, both Nigeria and the United States score similar, with Nigeria having a slightly higher score, indicating how both are split on the matter. Next category is pragmatism, which indicates how a society views past cultural values. A high score signifies how a society views looking ahead and adjusting to changing values, as opposed to a low score that signifies honoring traditions and maintaining steadfastness to its values. In the graph, we see that both Nigeria and the United States both have low scores. Nigeria with a lower score signifies how both societies view traditions as being a strong part of their culture moving forward. And last, we have indulgence, which indicates how a society views happiness, how free gratification of basic and natural human desires relate to enjoying life. A high score indicates how a society views them to be in control of their happiness, as opposed to a low score which regulates with strict social values. As you can see, both Nigeria and the United States both have high scores, indicating that both societies take happiness as within their own control. I will now discuss the technological section for Nigeria. We begin with a comparative graph of Nigeria's investments in research and development towards technological production as a percentage of its overall GDP to that of the United States. The expenditure is for creative work undertaken systematically to increase knowledge, basic research, applied research, and experimental development. As you can see in the graph, the difference in how a developed country compares to that of a developing country, where the United States invests 2.63% of its GDP, as opposed to Nigeria, which currently invests 0.22%. Quite the contrast. We now take a look into the number of patents over time between that of Nigeria and the United States. According to the World Intellectual Property Organization, a patent record report of patent applications, there is a grand contrast among the developed country of the United States, growing from 63,090 in 1960 to 285,096 in 2014. Nigeria, being a developing country, however, has fallen 1971 to 50 in 2013. As you can see here, the graph for Nigeria from 1971 to 2013, with relatively small activity, compared here to that of the United States, with a steady incline from 1960 to 2014.
The environmental picture of Nigeria is challenging, but there's a keen focus on improving. When we look at individual environmental indicators, Nigeria has some bright spots. According to the Environmental Performance Index, climate, biodiversity and habitat, and agriculture are a few of the environmental indicators where Nigeria has improving scores. Their scores in those areas are actually similar to the scores of the United States. However, they continue to struggle with key indicators including water and sanitation, air quality, and health impact. You may remember the oil spill from the Exxon Valdez in Alaska in 1989. It was one of the worst oil spills in history. Well, the Niger Delta has had an oil spill of that magnitude every year for the past 50 years, making the Delta one of the most polluted places on Earth. Research from the UN Environmental Program has found benzene levels 900 times higher than the World Health Organization's acceptable levels, and the organization has also found oil 5 meters deep in the soil. Also, it's estimated that 70 to 80% of Nigeria's forests have been lost. The result is a severe impact on wildlife and air quality. Overall, Nigeria has had consistent low rankings since 2007 on the Environmental Performance Index, which ranks countries' performance on high priority environmental issues in the two areas of protection of human health and protection of ecosystems. The Nigerian legal system is based on the English common law. The sources of Nigerian law are the Constitution, legislation, English law, customary law, Islamic law, and judicial precedents. The Constitution of Nigeria is the supreme law of the country. There are 4 distinct legal systems in Nigeria, which include English law, common law, customary law, and Sharia law or Islamic law. The country has a judicial branch, the highest court of which is the Supreme Court of Nigeria. The Nigerian Constitution recognizes courts as either federal or state courts. The federal courts are the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Federal High Court. The state courts include the High Court of the state, the Customary Court of Appeal of a state, and then the Sharia Court of Appeal of a state. The Supreme Court of Nigeria is the highest court in Nigeria. The Supreme Court is mainly a court of appellate jurisdiction and is the final appeal court in the country. The next highest court is the Court of Appeal. The Federal Court of Appeal is where multiple legal systems, including English, customary, and Sharia of Nigeria converge. Its constitutionality is required to have at least 3 judges who are versed in customary law and at least 3 judges who are versed in Islamic personal law. Just below the Federal Court of Appeal are the Tier 3 courts. They include the Federal High Court, the State Court, the State Customary Court of Appeal, and the Sharia Court of Appeal of a state. The lowest courts in the country are all state courts. Based on the high level of corruption in the country of Nigeria, personal property rights scores are very low for the country. Looking at the overall scores for Nigeria on the International Property Rights Index, the country scores near the bottom of the rankings consistently. When looking at a SWOT analysis for Nigeria, the strengths of the country include their economy. They have almost $96 billion in exports, vast natural resources, including agriculture, minerals, and petroleum, and a fairly educated population with 61% literacy rate. Weaknesses of the country include disease, including hepatitis, HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, poverty and corruption, pollution, and deforestation. When looking at the opportunities within Nigeria, they have a growing GDP of $509 billion, a business-friendly government, an agricultural system that's in need of modernization, and again, an educated population with a growing literacy rate. And finally, considering threats of Nigeria, number 1 is the climate change affecting an agricultural population, exploitation of minerals, political and economic corruption, and the spread of disease and poverty.